All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Blend Blazers podcast with your host, Ricardi Rice. And today we're going into Father's Day. So I want to have a real conversation for the good fathers out there who are up against battles and just issues that they don't even know. So that's the conversation we're having today. And you know me, so I had to go bring an expert and a great advocate for this particular topic. So I'm gonna let her introduce herself, and then we're gonna take it from there.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Caila Coleman, attorney Caila Coleman. I'm definitely an advocate for dads. I have been practicing law for almost 9 years now. 6 of those 9 years, I've been practicing mainly family law. When I got into family law, I learned that a lot of dads weren't getting a fair shake in court, especially if they were representing themselves. So I took it upon myself to start representing good dads and to make sure that they had an advocate in the courtroom that would help them out. And so I'm a trial attorney. I was just in trial yesterday. I have another trial coming up and another trial after that. So I definitely know what I'm doing, and I actually love what I'm doing. It's rewarding at the end of the day. So that's a little bit about me.
All right. And you're based in Atlanta. For those that live here and have these issues, you're based in Atlanta.
I'm based in Atlanta. However, my firm, I run virtually in Florida. So I'm licensed to practice in Florida, but if anybody needs any representation in Atlanta, I can for sure put them in place with someone who can help them out here.
All right, so let's start from the beginning. So are courts favorable by nature to mothers? Because I know I've heard that from just talk that they're more favorable to mothers. What does that dynamic look like going into court if you're a father?
Yeah, so I would say that the tides are changing just a little bit because they're recognizing that fathers have the ability to be nurturing, to be caring. And a lot of dads are stepping it up and having to be single fathers, unfortunately. But yeah, they definitely cater to women. In Florida, if you have a child born outside of a marriage, mom has all of the rights. So dad cannot have any rights to the child until he steps foot in a courtroom and says, hey, this is my child. I would like to establish rights. And the crazy thing is you can get him for child support and he still won't have any rights until he actually files something in court called a paternity action.
So by nature, men don't have rights in Florida.
Yep. Unless they were married. And if a baby was born outside of a marriage, a baby outside of wedlock, per the law, the mom has everything.
Are you serious?
I'm so serious. And it's backwards and it's counterintuitive because you have two people who may not believe in marriage, right? So they may have a child with someone and mom can up and move one day and not tell you where your child is or anything like that. And you have no say over it. And that happens very often.
So is that law reflective? Because I know every state varies. Is that law kind of echoed throughout other states?
Honestly, I'm not sure. You would have to check whatever state you're in. But I believe Texas may be the same way. I'm not sure about Georgia, but unfortunately, no matter what we've done to try to change the law, it's still antiquated and they've not done anything. I've even had a crazy case one time where a young lady had a child with my client. Child looks just like my client, but what she did was she ended up getting married to another individual. And that individual started assuming rights and responsibilities as his father to the point where it locked my client out of being able to have any action in court. And it's very scary. This child looks just like my client. Just like my client, the girl admitted it in text messages, all of that stuff. But Florida is very old when it comes to marriage. So it's presumed that once they now get married, that, okay, this is the father of that child, no matter if the real father wants to assert rights.
So marriage trumps paternity.
Exactly. Yep. Oh, you have a very limited window in which you can try to establish paternity if a person gets married after a child is born.
Oh my God, God, that is crazy. I would have never guessed that.
And a lot of times these fathers get sad or discouraged. There literally was nothing that I could do for my client in that moment other than try to fight in court. He just got tired. I had told him maybe we can take it to the news, maybe we can establish new case law in Florida, but sometimes they just get weary and it's like, okay, well, I'll just take my chances when he turns 18 to tell my story.
Oh my God. Okay, so I guess that's my next question. So, and we'll use Florida. So in Florida, how do I get the ball rolling to start this process?
Yes. So it's called an action for paternity and related relief. So basically, you file a petition saying, hey, I am the father of this child. And it's so humiliating, portions of it, because if you have not signed the birth certificate, you have to say when you had sex with this person. You have to say,
Oh my
hey,
God, are you
I
serious?
engaged in I engaged in sexual intercourse from this time to this time with this individual, which would be a causation for her to have been pregnant and had this particular child. And at that moment, you can say, I would like, right, it's very invasive.
I
You
mean,
can
is
say,
somebody gonna do the math? Like, how does that even work? Is somebody at the clerk office gonna actually do the math?
the judge will do the math.
Oh my
And so
God.
you can ask the court for a paternity test because it has to be an actual scientific test. It can't just be one of the ones that you might get from a grocery store, CVS or something like that. It has to actually be a certifiable scientific test. So you can ask for it. And it's crazy because sometimes dads will start this paternity process and they find out the child isn't theirs. So they're done. But most times, if a person is going to try to establish paternity, they know, or they, might have some speculation. But yeah, so you have to list when you had sex with this person from this month to this month, say that this is my child. Sometimes fathers are filing paternity cases and they don't even know the exact date their child was born or the social security number. So it's a lot of loopholes that you have to jump through, but it's called an action for paternity and related relief. And that's to get the ball rolling.
Okay, so we know that defending yourself is a thing for folks that don't have money.
Mhm.
What does that look like? Like, is that even, of course, I'm sure it's not advised. But is what you're talking about something that they could do on their own?
Yeah.
Uh,
For sure. And people ask me that question. I'm a realistic attorney. So I'm going to try to save you as much money as I can. So if it's something that I believe you can do on your own, I'll tell you, hey, do it on your own. Most of the times that's after they've come to me with a consultation and I can kind of see where they are mentally, see where they are education wise to see, okay, can this person represent themselves in court? But yes, in Florida, for any kind of family law case, you do not have to have an attorney at all. It's always recommended because we know the law, we know the loopholes, just like you were shocked at the fact that you have to list the dates that you've had sex with the
I
person.
can't even fathom that. Like, who does? I guess, and I think I'm analytical by nature. So I guess my thing is like, okay, if we've been intimate 3 or 4 times, how do I know which time was the actual time that
And you don't.
that the conception started?
Yeah, and you don't. You just take a shot in the dark because sometimes you'll, like the case that I was telling you about, he didn't even know that she had given birth until one day they were both working in the same grocery store together and she brought the child up here and was like, hey, this is your son. And this man is seeing his own face in this baby. And he's like, oh my God, now I have to start a paternity case. And she didn't tell him about him until he was almost 1 year old after she had already married that other young man. So she knew what she was doing.
Clearly.
But that's where it comes with hiring an attorney because there are very small windows of time that you may have before you can assert a paternity case. And you got to jump on it really, really quick, or else you might, lose your rights like my client unfortunately did.
So marriage is kind of in Florida, marriage is kind of the piece that kind of can kick paternity out of the way.
Exactly. And what's crazy is that you have people that get married and of course they have babies during that marriage, right? So it also locks that father in, even if he knows that that's not his child. So then you have to go through a disestablishment of paternity process, which is just as tough, especially if this child is used to calling you dad. The courts favor keeping a family intact is what they say. So to disestablish paternity, you have to have the scientific test and you have to pretty much move quickly after you find out that that child is not yours. And then the state has to determine whether it's better for this child to not have a father or for you to remain being the father of this child, although biologically it's not yours. It's a very heartbreaking situation. I had a case where the child was 13 and, she had a really close relationship with the person that she thought was her father. The court did go ahead and disestablish paternity. They ended up getting divorced, but it's very difficult because now you have somebody that's been deceitful and you have a child that doesn't even know who biologically their father is.
That is, now you got me want to look at Atlanta law. Like, is this how Atlanta law looks too? Like, who
Georgia,
does this?
listen, people try to say Florida's crazy. Georgia's the second close behind us. So I wouldn't be surprised if y'all had some.
Well, Texas is probably like first. I would love to see what Texas law looks like in a situation like this, because you know how Texas is. So,
Yes.
all right. So after you've
Great.
done this, what does the next phase look like? Like after you were able to get this particular
Right.
piece?
So you file the petition. The mom has a chance to file her answer. So she's looking at what you put in your petition, and she can either admit what you've put in there, deny it, or say she does not have any knowledge of what you're talking about. If she admits it, that's great, because the case, you guys can seal it on up, create a time sharing schedule, and be done. If mom is disputing anything, then you guys have to have the scientific testing, and then you go to mediation. If the child is yours, you go to mediation, and you guys kind of sit down at a table together to determine what you think will be in the best interest of this child. So like time sharing, like, okay, am I going to have 50-50? Am I going to be a dad that is every other weekend, every weekend? Tax credits, you talk about that. You talk about where the child is going to go to school, all of that good stuff. And when you're sitting down at the table with this person, you're pretty much projecting this child's life from whatever age they are now until they reach the age of 18. So that's really hard for moms sometimes, because you might have an infant and you're like, I don't know what her life is going to look like until she's 18, but the courts require you to, project it out that far because they believe in stability. They don't want a child to just be bouncing around and not having a schedule. And it also works out for dads too, because it takes the power away from mom when you have a set schedule saying, hey, dad's going to have this child from this time of day to this time of day. Mom cannot hold the child back. And it also gives dad a chance to hold mom accountable. So if she's, being emotional and not allowing the child to go with dad, he can step back in the courtroom and have a motion for contempt against her, that she's willfully disobeying a court order. So in a long way, it's basically you file the petition, you go to mediation, and then a judge signs off on what you guys have agreed together. If you can't agree at mediation, then you go to trial.
How hard is it to modify what y'all come up with?
So it has to be a substantial change in circumstances. This means that it's something that's big that you guys did not foresee. And it can be difficult. And it can't be petty. It can't be like, let's just say, oh, mom moved 2 miles away from me. Now it's going to require another 30 minutes worth of traffic for me to do an exchange with a child. No, it has to be big, like some sort of neglect, abuse, abandonment, where a mom might be trying to relocate to a different state. It has to be something substantial. And that's the only way you'll be able to modify it. Now, what I will say is that just because something is in writing doesn't mean that parents can agree to something different. It's only when you disagree that you go back to that paperwork from court that tells you exactly everything. If you guys can verbally agree on some other stuff and co-parent well, that's always a good thing for the court.
Okay. Does it have to be an establishment on the father's side, like a good job, good house? Does he have to establish that kind of stuff?
No, but it always looks well. Like I told you before, I was in trial yesterday, and I always like to bring up my client's character whenever I'm in trial. So I made him take pictures of the baby's room. Mind you, he had not had a chance to really spend a lot of time with his daughter. She is a little over 1 year old. But he had her bedroom set up before she was even born. And mom knew that and was just jealous and all of that. So I had pictures of her bedroom. I had him state what his educational background was, how long he's been at a job, what his upbringing was. And luckily he grew up in a 2-parent household. So it's always good to kind of show character and show that a person is established, because a lot of times moms will come in there like they have everything together and the dad is actually the one that has it more together than the mom. And in this case, that's exactly what it was.
Okay. What are some of the biggest obstacles that you've seen with your clients going into these kinds of things? I remember you saying that some of them got exhausted from the process.
That's the main thing that I see, is that dads just simply feel exhaustion. It just feels like you're fighting so much, and you've already been fighting with this mom prior to you even entering the courtroom. But that's the main thing. But I always tell them, hey, get a mental health counselor, because you're going to need somebody to, help guide you through this really is emotional. And I've learned that sometimes guys deal with emotions differently than women. So you need a support system. Also, I tell them, rely on your support system. If you have a good mom, dad, cousin, something like that, like people that you can vent to, that's always a good thing to have. But that's the main thing, is exhaustion. And then for me, I don't care about the money too much. I will get paid, but I don't care about the money too much. If I'm on your case and you run out of funds, I'm still going to stick with you as long as I can, to help you see the process through. And a lot of times for these guys, if you see the process through, it's going to be rewarding in the end, for sure.
What would make this process longer? Like detesting from the mother's side, or establishing something? What would make this drawn out?
if mom is, or if both parties are not agreeing to things. When you have paternity in particular, it's a lot of emotions because obviously these two people aren't together anymore. Sometimes mom is stuck on the fact that, oh, you weren't there for the birth, or, oh, you didn't help me out financially, prior to this case. So it's a lot of emotional undoing before you even get to court. And so that's sometimes the things that slow things down. Or if another party is just not willing to turn over documents, like you have to turn over a financial affidavit so we can calculate child support, or your tax returns, or check stubs. We need all of those things to calculate child support accurately. And sometimes people will withhold documents just to slow a case down.
Let's segue there because I've always been curious about how they do child support payments. What is the formula for that? Is there a formula that you use?
It is a formula. So it's based on mom's income, dad's income, and the number of overnights a child spends at each household. So if you're doing 50-50, I suck at math. I really have the formula broken down on my computer so I could just type things in. But you have, 365 days in a year. So half of that, if it's half and half and the party's income is pretty similar, you're not going to pay child support because it's similar. But then you have sometimes where dads will just get every other weekend. So only 20% of the year they're spending with their dad. So of course, dad's going to pay more child support because he's getting the child less time. So that's usually the calculation. Now, there are other circumstances, where a person might, not have a lot of money, and that's taken into the child support calculations as well. They're not going to penalize you for not being rich. And child support is a completely different issue than time sharing. So you see a lot of times moms will get that mixed up. Oh, you're not paying child support, I'm not going to let you see your child. No, in Florida, they don't play that. Child support is different. You're still going to be allowed to see that child, even if you haven't paid a dime.
Is that some kind of legal right there that I can say definitively?
Because it's two separate things. It's two separate categories, and moms get it mixed up all the time. Like I said, unfortunately, you have people in circumstances where they might fall behind on child support or maybe not have a lot of money. And that is one of the substantial changes in circumstances that we're talking about. So you might have somebody that made a lot of money, but then they get fired from their job, or the pandemic, which we did not foresee. So a lot of people were going back and modifying just because they weren't able to make a living when the pandemic first started.
Well, how did that process look? Because I mean, was it expedited because of COVID, knowing that it wasn't something we ever encountered?
It was a mix. It was expedited and slowed down because of how many people were filing cases. And at that time, because we weren't having court in person, people were violating court orders for time sharing because they knew they could get away with it. The jails were already packed. During that time in 2020 and 2021, jails were actually shutting down because COVID was spreading in jail. So even if a person was ordered to go to jail, they could file a motion to, ask to not have to go because they'll be exposed unnecessarily to COVID. But yeah, I had one case at the beginning of the pandemic where a mom just took off with the child, and I think they actually moved somewhere in Florida. Dad was living out in Colorado and he was trying to find his child. Mom had her with her at some homeless shelter. So we're sending sheriffs down in that county to try to figure out where the child was. We eventually tracked it down and we got the child to be placed back with dad. But she just took off. Yeah, and that's what happens when you don't have rights. People can just do whatever they want with your child and you have no say.
Yeah, I did not expect this. I think that marriage thing trumping paternity is what really gets me. It's like, so because I married somebody, now they have the rights to my child, even though it's paternally my child.
And this is super scary too, because we know that the abuse rates go up sometimes when you have a child that doesn't belong to that father in the household, or a child that doesn't belong to that mother in the household. And what's even worse is this child looks just like my client. So you have a child that's named after you, that's not yours, that looks just like somebody else. Yeah. So I hope, I pray, literally, I was praying during that case that child was being taken care of, not being abused. But, what's done in the dark will come to the light. And, at the end of the day, I do believe that justice will always be served, whether or not it's in a courtroom.
Okay. Any other information that they should know that, because you're the expert, any other information they should know?
Yeah, for sure. If you're not married to the person that you're having a child with, I would suggest starting a paternity action, even if you're still in a relationship with that person. Only because you want to make sure that you have rights. And it might be off-putting to the woman that you're with, but at the end of the day, it saves you. Now, if you guys end up getting married, perfect. You don't even got to worry about it. But if you don't believe that you might marry that person, go ahead and start a paternity action. Let the court know that you guys are living together and y'all are, residing together. That way, if y'all break up, that's the substantial change in circumstances. And you can go back and modify and say, hey, now I want 50-50, I want this and that. But yeah, go ahead and start that paternity action. It may seem intimidating at first, but is well worth the reward, because now when you start that action, it makes the mom stay in place. She cannot remove that child from the jurisdiction. And, in case if she gets mad and wants to just leave, she can't do that. And now you have, a little bit of fight in the game.
Actually, now that brought up a question. So if we're married and we have a child and we get divorced and she gets remarried, what does that look like?
It don't look like nothing. Those are still your babies. Okay. So in a divorce, you talk about time sharing. You do all of the same stuff that you would do in a paternity case, but it's not called paternity. It's just a divorce action. So you still have to go to mediation. You have to determine what you guys would think would be best for that child. And yeah, but you don't ever have to worry about losing rights because you guys were married. Okay. Yep. It's a lot, man. It's definitely.
Like I said, that particular piece just stands out. It's like, wow, like even if I want to be active in my child's life and she gets married, I'm screwed. Like, how does?
Yeah, that is exactly what it is. And it's super sad. And this is not the first case nor the last. And I'm hoping that one day a collective of dads will stand up and take it to the news and really try to fight it in legislation. But there's nothing I can do about it on my end as an attorney other than what has already been done. And the good thing about it is when kids grow up, they can go back and look at the paperwork. Like my name is going to be on paperwork for children that I've never met, but they'll see that their dad fought for them. They'll see that their dad was trying to do something. And they can also see what their mom was trying to do as well, if she was trying to block them out or not. And that speaks volumes.
True. This is very, very true. All right, this is gonna have to be a part 2 because I got so many other questions that now, like I said, I won't look at Atlanta law because this is absolutely crazy. Yeah. All right, any final thoughts that you want to leave with the fathers that are listening?
Yeah, just if you are involved in a paternity case right now, just hold out hope. Keep fighting. Keep doing the right thing, because at the end of the day, the right thing will always win. Like I said before, whether it's in court or whether it's not in court, you're always going to win out when you do something correct, when you do it for the right reasons. So just hold out hope.
How do we get in touch with you?
So you guys can email me. My email is kai@colemanlaw.net. So CAI@COLEMANLAW.net. My phone number is 407-801-9533. And you guys can hang out with me on social media if you want to. I'm not the same person that I am right
now. I learned that when I started following you. I was like, wait, what? wait, what? She's a social what?
Yeah, I'm definitely a social attorney, but it's Caila A Coleman on Facebook, or on IG, it's Kai_LYFE.
All right, everybody. So there you have it. This is your Father's Day gift from me. This is my Father's Day gift to all the good fathers out there that, you're in situations and you really want your child. I figured it'd be the best thing to get you the information that you need. Special thanks to attorney Mrs. Caila A Coleman. Thank you for being with us today. Again, it's got to be a part 2, or you got to be on one of my panels, because this is definitely a conversation. This stuff needs to get off the books. Like, this is crazy that marriage can trump paternity. I'm still stuck on that. Never expect you to say that. But hey, you guys, we will catch you another day at another time. Check out the website at ricecommunity.com. Remember, that's Rice with a W, WRICE community.com, and see what else we have coming up. And have a great Father's Day weekend. We will talk to you guys soon.